So we're directors. This idea that we're directing, in a sense, rather than living, we're not characters. In a sense, the idea that we are characters has been given to us by directors, the profession. Watching television, a history of being introduced to television, I'm sure directors, the people who were able to direct the television shows at that time, may have had a great ability to direct, but obviously things have developed. TV isn't as important or having as much of a significant influence as it did when it was first introduced. You could say because of other technologies, but because of the way that TV was introduced to us, we have taken upon this idea that it's more effective to be a character interacting rather than being a director. This idea of control still can be seen as directing, but appeals more to this idea of you being a character in a situation and not having any directing abilities, kind of. So just thinking about the technology that we're being introduced to, screens, televisions, desktops and their monitors. We came, obviously at the same we had this idea of our brain directing things at the same time, obviously that being our character. I'm not thinking too differently from how things are. People are also suggesting that, like, the heart plays an important role, like your heart, the physical organ, maybe in a metaphorical sense. It pumps the blood, the fluid it pumps, it regulates that in your blood, which is interesting. So it took me to, because I went to study medicine for a year, just looking at the lymphatic system. Obviously it's very important because it cleans the blood, basically. It's one way of pointing out the function, what it's there for, and it's all over the body. And so looking at just the way that screens and computers have developed, that have presented to us this idea of television characters and them being directed, and it not being too much of our concern. I'm not saying that obviously the director has all of the influence over the people that are acting. Obviously it can be seen that some actors are influential, but unfortunately it seems to, just the idea that actors or characters have power is kind of this. It's like they needed something to direct. It's like we're directors. I'm saying exactly. Even though we're directors, some people would rather be we're directors. So not directing all the time, but at a certain time of day, maybe habitually, they have the ability to direct their experience. This idea is appealing to some people. They don't want the responsibility of directing all the time. So it seems like this is what actors have presented to us in just their whole lifestyle. I'm assuming the limelight, the paparazzi, the fans, and the deals with all the labels and the industries that they entertain us to provide profit or establish these industries by entertaining us. So this being attractive to some people, is obviously an improvement from not being able to direct at all, in their opinion. But at the same time, it's suggesting that you're unable to direct all the time, that somehow it'd use too much of your resources. So obviously it's suggesting that we're directors is kind of like, this is all we can do, is direct. We have an intention, an influence over our community that can be interpreted as directing people. So I mentioned control before. You know, we all have the ability to direct. If we're okay with how things are going, we're most likely not to put too much of our own resources that we would have to be responsible for to direct how things are going, because we're happy with how things are going, and that's one way of saying it. And so when we are dissatisfied, and a non type of sarcastic or entertaining, gesturing, attention seeking type of way, like we're truly looking for something to change in our environment, in our community, then we're most likely to find the resources within ourselves, within the community, to change the community, the environment, and yourself into something that will eventually, you know, make you happy. Maybe not even cause you to use less resources, but seeming as, you know, the directors have resources. Like even on a movie set, you could see it, like every other role, every other part of the crew, like the makeup artists, the sound effects, they all have an influence on the director. You know, if they wanted something in the film, it'd be easiest just to get the director, convince the director to, you know, agree with the way you're seeing things and do what you wish, you know, in that type of way. And so that the director can be said as the brain, kind of. But like I said, this is a very it's a very it's not a good interpretation of our ability to direct using our resources, like all of our resources in our body. And so just looking at the body, I took out 3 type of broad categories of things in our body. Like I said, the lymphatic system, and we have sensory neurons, which I say function as the screen, the display monitor. It's what senses things. We sense the screens, and we have motor neurons, which is connected to the brain, you know, relative to the sensory neurons, and, you know, can be seen as the mechanics, obviously, behind the screen that produce the display, which we sense with the sensory neurons. And so, you know, there has to be some type of like management of this. So I brought up the lymphatic system, which, you know, it's important in our immune system, you know, to regulate what goes in and out of our bodies, similar to the sensory neurons, and how things are processed within our bodies, what things can be processed and what things can't, kind of like the motor neurons. And so it's kind of like obviously if you remove your lymphatic system, you would obviously not be able to run. Relative to the computer, it's like the motherboard, you know. Necessarily it does contain lots of different pieces of technology. I wouldn't call them gadgets, but, you know, processors and whatnot. It can be seen as the motor neuron, which obviously is very intimately related to the lymphatic system. And obviously then this extends towards, you know, even the mouse could be seen as something that's similar to the human in the way of the sensory neurons, because we have hands, you know, we sense as touch as well. And so taking it from there, the touch that we perceive, in a sense, is informed by our understanding of physics. And so since we are directors, looking at the history of what possibly the things people like to call gods, people like to call the things in the past before Christianity or Catholic, before the Catholic Church was established, gods, kind of as if God wasn't a word introduced by the Catholic Church. And so I feel like the appeal towards calling things before the Catholic Church like God is obviously just the oppression, the influence of the Catholic Church. And so obviously this benefits people, and this is of a detriment to people, and it's really just balanced by what they are sensing, you know, and how they are able to, you know, turn that into action, how they are able to interpret what they're sensing, you could say, and then even after that, what effect this has, you know, does this provide a negative immune response? Does this impede processes in their body, which like I said, could be which are, you know, cleaned by the lymphatic system, in that simple way of saying it, rather than processed by the brain solely. Looking at the brain, obviously it's an organ, in a sense, doesn't play as big as a role as the vessels. And so considering things like, you know, this stress, you know, something that is just hormonal, you know, obviously it's nothing really to do with your brain, more so with how it's affecting your body, because it's something you feel all over your body, not just in your head. And so obviously the troubles in parts of your body affect you more so than how you can relate that to your brain. You know, it's not really how you think about it, but you know, your body has been made in a certain way to work in your community. You know, you wanted to do something for your community and you were prevented to because a body part stopped. Like nothing you think about the situation could possibly affect that. And so obviously thinking is a brain type of thing. So the consciousness still is just merely something you can interpret, and the unconscious plays a similar role in that it, you know, is not sensed. It is not something you can interpret. It has no interpretation. But it is still going towards your actions. It is still part of your actions. You can still behave unconsciously to achieve a goal, to live your life unconsciously. This is still possible, and it's most likely not happening all the time. And so obviously with this psychoanalytical model Freud gave us, some people will it's in my opinion, it's most simply looked at as an ideal. He gave us an ideal model for us to use in psychotherapy to take a therapeutic look on life, you know, even to the extent that hypnosis was therapeutic, in the sense that it is merely hypnosis. You know, the ideals that we have, they hypnotize us, and this, in a sense, creates conscious and unconscious behavior. It derives from it. So ideally we wouldn't want to have interpretations for everything that is happening, and we could fail, we could want to be surprised, and so not having an interpretation serves an ideal purpose for us. And so you could say these ideas stem from normal behavior. It's a normal way of seeing things, which is Catholic. In some ways people see as Catholic, inherently, the responsibility of the Catholic Church. And so if you look at what the popes have been saying over the years, the councils that they have where they meet in Nicaea, a couple thousand years ago, and now the Vaticanum, they talk of people in the community and how if people in the community do not agree with them in the way that they are seeing things, that they are to be punished. I'm describing it in varied ways, I'm sure covering all of their understanding. So they show us, or intend to make us normal like them, and in the way that they see it. And so it's for about 1500 years, about 1200 years, 1500 years, this was what they were suggesting. And so after that, when the Vatican established itself for the past 500 years, they told us to go on a mission. It was this Catholic missionary idea that there's something good to say. They use Jesus in this case, something good to talk about, and so we must talk about, or we must be on a mission. We must accept that we're on a mission to talk about something good. Kind of, it's similar to obviously saying if you don't agree with us, we'll punish you. And I think must have evolved and developed at this time. I'm sure the scientific revolution happened around at this time. So they were merely going along with what the public was saying, what every other normal person was saying. So they don't have any significant amount of influence. I'm sure anyone that you appreciate doesn't have more influence because you appreciate them. Obviously the directing is just directing. If someone has directed something and they're happy with how it's been going, doesn't mean that they have any more resources, any more ability to direct than someone else that may be directing in a way that they're upset, in that they are miserable. They want to use those type of emotions to direct. So looking at the screens, the televisions, the sensory neurons, this is obviously all that's what it's displaying. This is what we have to judge people on the surface level. In a sense, is the whole level. Obviously the sensory neurons are connected with the motor neurons. We can tell what is going on inside someone from how they are sensing things, what they are making sense of, and how they're displaying themselves, like a screen, like the people on television. And obviously the processing power, their cleanliness, their hygiene, their ability to make sense of things, and get things done, all falls under this normal category. And so, but calling it normal isn't, in a sense, providing a reference to any type of understanding. It seems to be something people say, like God, to prevent or to attribute it to a person themselves, maybe prevent it to be attributed to another person or yourself. But it doesn't really do that. That's just some way of directing, as if you were dissatisfied. So just looking at a way of referencing, work, studies, understanding that all humans have, because we're directors. We can be weredirectors, but we're directors. That's just the misery. Even the were is the aggressive, the uncomfortable, the dissatisfied way of directing, which doesn't necessarily happen all the time. It may be unconscious. So to speak about the subject that we as directors have produced. We've called them studies. You know, this idea is somewhat on theories, you know, corrupted by schools. This idea is somewhat being taken hold of by academia. And everyone believes subjects are merely something you learn at school. But obviously we knew about these things before school was established. It's merely academia, a subject in itself that produced schooling. You know, it doesn't even have to occur just at school. We have homeschooling, we even have educational shows. Everything can be seen to serve an academic purpose to an extent until it's no longer academia. It's no longer supporting the development of this subject. There are many subjects, and they can be seen. There's obviously they derive from each other, like psychoanalysis derives psychology and psychiatry. It has, and sure that it could continue on from there. But you could see physics kind of as the primary subject that we have an understanding of. It must have been at our origin, this idea of something being original. Is it physically possible? These original things that we hear of, is this physical reality? Is it non-physical? You know, which is obviously still like antimatter, like the matter that we don't see, that doesn't interact with us like our bodies do, or like the environment does. It's non-physical, but it's still represented in our understanding of physics. And so with physics as the kind of, you could say, the holistic, it seems to be involved in every subject, and every subject seems to be involved in it, seems to have some physics behind it. You know, cooking to, you know, dancing to everything in between. So we have subjects like finance, economics, accounting, that have kind of, in some people's minds, taken over the holistic, the all-encompassing role that physics clearly has. That physical things, the physical suggestion obviously has. You know, the idea that things has to be valued and judged for value and not their physical properties. The money makes the world go round, rather than the obviously underlying physics that causes a world to go round. You know, obviously even to allow money to be established as what is making the world go round must have a physics behind it. And so it doesn't really contradict physics in this way. It so much supports it from in an unconscious way. It seems to be wholly unconscious. We seem to be completely unconscious of the physics of what we use as currency. And so obviously currency used to be like gold. You could say when we use gold in obviously making computers now, and the wiring and things, because it's very conductive, it's a very good material. So we have more of an understanding of the physical properties. We have a use for it, and so there's no use using it just to buy other things. You know, we can just use pieces of paper. We have lots of paper now. You know, and even so, it's not just money. Finance isn't really just about money. It's a currency, a property even that you can exchange. And so the currency can be anything really that you do not value the physical properties of. People as slaves. Obviously, virtual currency isn't the same money we use to play the games, let's say, or you know, the tokens, coupons on websites obviously have no physical properties. We have no understanding of what the physics is really doing, and we have no care in that type of way. It's financial. And so it's kind of established a kind of a top and bottom, a kind of the limits of what the subjects can do. We have that now. So it's obviously the physics obviously is holistic. It's obviously the optimum understanding of the physical properties of the optimum way of understanding the physical properties. And then we have finance, you could say, but what is necessary if we lose our understanding of the physical properties. Something still must be, like, if it's in our existence, you know, it can still be put to good use, put to valuable use. We could still ascribe a value to it, regardless of whether or not this value is consistent with the physical properties that we have in our experience. So this could be again attributed to slaves. You know, we may not know what benefit that they can give, but we will ascribe a value to them to eventually establish an understanding of the physical properties. So everything else in between, obviously other subjects have manifested in between, in this tension between physics and finance. So obviously these aren't in conflict, they're if there's a confidence as well, if there is a conflict, that there must be a confidence. You know, you could say the confidence is always in an understanding of the physical properties, rather than obviously valuing any of the physical properties. Obviously value in itself has a physical function, a psychological meaning, you could say. And so as we're directors, we direct obviously from our understanding of physics, and result to finance where our understanding of physics fails us.